Third first round stoppage. This was his first fight at 10 rounds. It wasn't going to go 10 rounds, but I think there was some degree of underestimation of Max Maxwell. He was certainly a far more rugged opponent. This night we were in Deeside Leisure Centre, and this will be a night that Tom Doran won't forget. He's not fought since this night. And this was again one of these great small hall fights that we brought you early on this year. It was a very, very good recovery this from Tom Doran. He was getting bellowed at by his corner. And as we said, Maxwell, there'd been no real talk about what he was able to do prior to this fight. It was all about almost like the coronation, or almost something of the debutant arriving on the scene. And there's a clear view inside this first round of what he was capable of doing. He shipped a lot of punches, Maxwell coming at him at every occasion. This was a real welcome, tough welcome to the really big time, this. He was live on television for the first time in his career, and he was having to dig out the type of performance that he never thought, or neither did his matchmakers ever think that he'd have to dig out here. At this point, we weren't expecting a first round stoppage. We weren't going to get one. And for some, we thought it might have been coming for Maxwell. But Doran would actually turn this around. It was one of the best first rounds that we'd seen in any of the fights that we'd actually covered. You see the blood coming from the nose of Doran. But again, you see Maxwell just shaking these off, and again that brutal right hand, and he looked as if he was going again, and this time he turned the tables, the referee stepping in, and it was a controversial stoppage at that time, and Maxwell couldn't quite believe it. He was wondering why he'd been stopped here, and even again when we're getting a look at this for a second time, it really was a bad decision by the referee to step in and stop this. Okay, Maxwell had taken a big shot, but Doran had taken quite a few. He was a lucky boy, Doran. You could just see him beginning to stumble there. He come back well. That was the punch just there. It'll be been wobbled, and again.
And still undefeated as a professional boxer.
Well, there was a few boos in there as well, and for good reason. Maxwell should have been allowed to go on. And Tom Doran was dazzling when he came in. He was bedazzled on the way out. Into the welterweight division now, Selçuk Aydin. The 28-year-old, the mini Tyson he's called, 19-0. He'd recently won a clutch of international titles, and many believe that he was on his way to bigger and better things. This fighter was, remember, suspended for 5 years early in his career for attacking a referee. Tonight, he would vent his anger and rain down fury on Dmitry Damashkin. As you can see, that cut, or he opened a gaping wound over the eye of Labashkin, who was unbeaten, actually, coming into this fight. He's lost 2 more since this, so he's 3 in a row off the back of this, and the referee finally stepping in and waving it off. Enough was enough. A dominant performance from the mini Tyson, Selçuk Aydin. Right, back in April, we got a look at a prospect from Brooklyn, New York, who was inspired, he said, by Prince Naseem Hamed. His name, Saddam, the world kid Ali. He's some pedigree too. He won the Golden Gloves, aged just 17 years of age, represented his country as well, been to an Olympic Games. He was 11-0 since turning pro, coming into this fight against Javier Perez at the Prudential Center in New York. It was a good night, this. We'll see another of the fights from this bill a little bit later on. 7-5-0 was the Puerto Rican's record. The 5 would become 6, though, in round 3, as Ali would KO his man in clinical fashion. Been a cautious approach in this fight. He was in front of the TV cameras for a second time in his career. And again, methodical about the way he went about his work. Took his time, waited for the opportunity to present itself. It did. The left hook found Garcia. Javier Garcia Perez was no more. Name to watch out for in the future, without a shadow of a doubt, Saddam the World Kid Ali. Now back we come with the Nordic Nightmare. Might look older, but believe it or not, he still is only 27 years of age. We'd seen him a few times in 2010. We've seen him stop Lamont Brewster. The opponents have been getting tougher, culminating with a 9th round stoppage of Samuel Pera 4 months previously. Jakovic, though, would be the next to go. The 35-year-old had held the WBO title briefly after he'd beaten Lamont Brewster before he lost it to Shannon Briggs. Here he suffered a 9th round stoppage. Remember the Nordic Nightmare had a nightmare against Chisora recently when he won a hugely controversial split decision. But tonight, Liakovic was no match whatsoever. On we move then to the 28-year-old Karo Murad, who took on Otis Griffin for a vacant IBF Intercontinental Light Heavyweight title. He'd been on the comeback trail since being stopped by Nathan Cleverly in September of 2010. Otis Griffin, 37 years of age now, been on the scene for a long, long time. 23-7-2. His claim to fame, his one claim to fame, really, is that he won the Oscar de la Hoya reality show, The Next Great Champ. He'd struggled against the big names. He'd been beaten by the likes of Jeff Lacey. Tonight, another bad night. Gets stopped in 11 by Murad. The next great champ, he ain't gonna be. Now, Sean Estrada may be a new name for most. The 26-year-old, 6'1" unbeaten super middleweight from East LA. He'd been literally blazing a trail through the division. Only one fighter had taken him the distance. Tony Hershey went 6 with him about a year before. This was the 10th first-round stoppage of his career so far. Joel Gardner was the victim here, age 36. Just 7-3-1 in a career that was 9 years old, so the omens weren't really that great. Estrada, something of a name for the future. Yada, absolutely no match for him tonight. And Estrada's gone on to win a couple of more times since this fight. Then there was a sense of fear and foreboding about Gunn. It was something just about a survival exercise really for him. You knew that Estrada was going to catch up with him. Just look at that for a left hook. There weren't too many in the crowd at this stage early on in the evening, but there it comes. Backed into the corner, and there it is, right on the button. He didn't even see it. Chris Ariela's been in the heavyweight divisional scene for, what, 8 years now. This is 30th fight en route. He hoped to another shot at the big one. He'd fought Vitaly Klitschko back in 2009, being stopped in the 10th round. Since then, he'd been beaten as well by Thomas Adamek by decision. Naji Aguilera was 16-5-0. He'd lost his last two against Antonio Tarver, who'd reappeared in the heavyweight division, and Maurice Harris. This night, it wasn't going to be a good night for him either. Ariola back to something like his better form. Had the crowd with him. It was something of an all-action display, this, from Ariola. Will catch up with his man eventually. Aguilera nowhere to go, kept getting caught in the corner, and the big bombs flying in. He was missing a few of them. He was landing the majority, the left hand doing the damage. And really all Aguilera was doing was shipping big punishment, as his good work from Ariola switched to work to the considerable body that was on display here. On the run to see if he could survive the 118 that was left in the third round. Great uppercut and left hook with big shots, and that for a right hand nearly sent him outside the stadium. Great finish from Ariola. And he'd announced to a few people that thought he was over and done with and finished as a contender. There was still something about this guy. He was still worthy of consideration. The big one still to come, and there it goes. Brave attempt by Aguilera to try and fight back, but he was no match. Ariola marches on. Welcome back there. This was an international contest between Romania's Bogdan Dinu, age 25, who is 5-0. In what seemed a pedestrian career, having turned pro in 2008. Tamim was 27, born in Tanzania, these days fighting out of Stockholm, 12-2-0 his record. And the more experienced, fighting for various African and Asia-Pacific titles. He's recently lost to Timur Ibragimov for the Intercontinental crown. He was stopped in 3. Here, though, he'd be done in 1. The Romanian building a bit of momentum around a career which, as we said, 3 years old. He's not been particularly active, but when you look at the way that he dismantled this opponent here, wonder why he has been as tardy in getting into the ring. Had a decent career, knocking around as an amateur as well, and able to take a bit of punishment here. Well, the one thing that he does possess is punch power, as his opponent here was just about to find out. He soaked up a few. Tamim was about to kiss this night goodnight. So he's got a couple of fights scheduled in 2012 already.